For our last speaker this morning, or just before lunch, very happy to have back Tommy, who was at our last conference too. And so this is Tommy Lindström, the Energy Agency for the Southeast in Sweden. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very nice to be back at this conference. I was attending last year, and it was very, very interesting for many reasons. I can start off just by reflecting on the first speaker today about the Interreg South Baltic program, what it means to me. I had a moment a week ago. I went down to the beach, as I live close to the beach in the Baltic Sea on an island. And I sat there and I watched the sunset, and for a glimpse of a moment, I was totally lost. So I reacted, and I have to look around to identify where I was. Was I still on my island, or was I in Warnemünde, or was I in Sopot, or were I in Palanga? Because I have visited all these places, and I felt that Interreg South Baltic has provided not only great cooperation, but for me, it was a sense of belonging somewhere. So that's what it means to me. So that was a reflection of what Interreg South Baltic means to me. Now, I'm going to do a world speed record presentation before lunch. So please fold up your tray and hold on to your safety belt. Here we go. I'm going to address the situation in Sweden in particular, and some also about a very interesting other Interreg biogas project, which I'm actually conducting for the moment. So the title is, of course, Biogas Support Schemes. We all need them, because we are not one-to-one competitive to fossil fuels yet, so we need some help to get along the way. So make or break support schemes, that's what I'm going to talk about. First, a few words about the other Interreg project. Is the Interreg BSR project called Best ACE, about exploring the biogas markets in the Baltic. We are to increase the production, yes. We are looking to possible market opportunities, as we have heard today before. And we're looking into what do we need to not only explore, but to increase the use of biomethane on these markets. And we're looking to make a roadmap as a proposal for politicians and the market in general, in what direction to move to secure this increased uptake of biomethane. And if you look at state of play, as it was 2 years ago, as the latest statistics I have found, we can see the production, what we have around the Baltic for the moment, and we can see very little injection into the national gas grid. So this, of course, is supposed to change. I know that. And we have started to investigate each country's possibility. And of course, you know, Finland and Sweden has almost no gas grid at all. And we have limited in Estonia and Latvia, which are the other partners of this project. And there are obstacles, especially in the support schemes. Where is the biogas heading? And you all know that the combustion engine supposedly will end in 2035. And our challenge is that the suppliers, the manufacturers of cars, they have already stopped the production. In Sweden, there is one brand available if you would like to buy a gas car today. And we all remembered how it started, the biogas movement. It started with the agriculture. They were looking for a solution, environmental solution, to produce biogas, but they were looking for a market. And in the case of Sweden, we did have a market, but heating and electricity was not that market. We had, for many, many years, one of the lowest prices of electricity in Europe, so it is not a competitive market for biogas. But if we can upgrade it into compressed biogas, yes, we have a market in public transport. So it started as a regional affair between producers and the regional authorities in charge of public transports, where we can start a market to grow. But now, in the last years, we know that this has become not only a European but a global market of biomethane. And we know the targets. And if we start looking, I don't have a slide about it, but if we're looking about which countries will support this most in Europe, the Baltic countries are not these countries, with the exception of Germany. So what should we do with the biomethane? We have different support schemes in place. There are some variables. Of course, we have feed-in tariffs, we have premium feed-in tariffs, we have quota green certificate system, which is now increasing in many countries. Fiscal incentives, tax exemptions, for example, and investment support for production, but also investment support for end users. For example, a reduction of cost or a subsidy for buying a LNG truck, which are, of course, much more expensive investment than buying a regular diesel truck. So these are the different types of initiatives that exist for support schemes. And Sweden mainly has fiscal incentives. In Finland, we have investment support and a quota system. Estonia had a feed-in premium system, and Latvia, for the moment, lacks all kinds of support schemes for biomethane. And that is, of course, a big obstacle in their development of biomethane. So we start to ask many questions in this project. First of all, should the support schemes aim to increase the use of biomethane on all possible markets? Small scale, big scale? Should it be where it's most used, like a quota system for certificates in the national gas grid? Yes, they will eat up all our consumption. Or should it aim for markets where they can really make a big difference in greenhouse gas emission reduction? Should we aim for that market? Should we support small scale, like nano LNG, or should we focus on the big scale plants and biogas production, where it can make a big difference in greenhouse gas emissions reductions? So now, finally, I'm going to tell you how about support schemes has worked and is working in Sweden, just to give you an example. In 1991, we had the first CO2 emission tax introduced in the legislation. In early 2000, it was slowly gaining a market, biomethane, on the production, especially on agricultural level. So we introduced a tax exemption for biomethane. Still, when it came about in the 2000s, they said they still have to pay energy and emission tax that was introduced earlier. But it was a possibility to apply for a refund of these taxes if biogas was upgraded to CBG and used for transport or for heating purposes. And that was a bit difficult, because then the regions were starting to say, how can we increase the production? We know that we have the potential, we are aiming, we know there are buses around that can run on CBG, what should we do? In 2011, the actual government said, okay, we're going to introduce a tax exemption for biomethane producers and traders in general, so we don't have to get the refund of taxes. It was quite a bureaucratic way of handling it. And it was excellent. It did work. We did apply to the European Union, and the Commission said, it's okay, it's a good purpose. By this, the ratio was 4 times more expensive to produce biomethane than natural gas. So, of course, tax exemption was quite good as a state aid. It did fulfill a purpose. So this was until 2020. And what happened in 2020? They decided to introduce more support schemes for biomethane. For example, the Board of Agriculture offers a support for turning manure into biogas, 4 cents per kilowatt hour. The Swedish Energy Agency offers a support of 4 cents if you upgrade it to CBG, and another 5 cents per kilowatt hour if you upgrade it to bio-LNG. Very good. But as you recall, the tax exemption ended in 2020, so we needed to apply for a second tax exemption to the Commission, also for 10 years. So we did. And it was approved by the Commission without any problems. The only thing, there was one objection for a German energy supply company. They claimed that we have a certificate system in Germany. We need a certain amount of green gases into our national gas grid. And we would like to buy this biomethane from Denmark. But the Danes, they would like to sell it to Sweden instead. Because in Sweden, biomethane has a tax exemption, make it more profitable to sell it to Sweden. That is unjust, they said. So they applied to the court, European court, saying this is something wrong with this. And normally, no one really took notice about this because they said, well, if the Commission has granted a tax exemption for Sweden for biomethane, certainly it will not be changed by this appeal. So what happened? Well, you might have guessed and read it in the news. The court, after 2 years, came to a decision, finding that this German company has claimed that it was unjust, and it should be further investigated by the Commission before they took the decision to grant this tax exemption to Sweden. So the Commission did wrong. And the decision to grant tax exemption to biomethane in Sweden was revoked. And it was finalized in 7th of March this year. And this now has provided an enormous amount of problems in my country. The immediate consequences: farmers stopped producing heat and electricity from biogas. They are torching it up because they're afraid they need to pay tax. And the tax is around 3 cents a kilowatt hour. All orders for LNG trucks was cancelled immediately. Prices for biomethane at the filling stations went up 50 cents over one night. And it might sound that it was a bit drastic, but if you have a business plan, and one part of the business plan is retroactive, taken away from you, of course that will have huge consequences for us. So what happens now? And here it is. We don't know. We know that the business in general will only last a couple of months more. Then we are having to start closing down or torching up biomethane in Sweden. There is no business case anymore without the tax exemption. And the problem is that we have many options, but also many obstacles. First of all, there are so many departments, political departments, involved in the government. That's one thing. And they are looking at it from different perspectives. And you all know that general regulation, the GEBER exemption regulation, the new version do provide the possibility for any country to introduce support schemes by saying by GEBER. They don't need the approval of the Commission. And that's good. So why don't we do it in Sweden? Well, the thing happened is if we apply for GEBER now with the tax exemption, it will start running in 2023. So what happened in 2021 and 22? We have to claim the taxes, as we didn't have tax exemption for these 2 years. The fiscal department, the treasury department, need to claim taxes for all the producers, and there are millions of euros. It will ruin the business. So far, the treasury department has said, okay, there is an ongoing investigation, so we will not claim any taxes for the moment. But if the government decides to apply by GEBER for tax exemption, we need to claim the taxes for 21 and 22. And that's a big challenge. So the government is hesitating, saying, okay, we might then ask the Commission to renew the decision, to remake the case, sort of, and do the investigation, and then grant us the tax exemption from 2020 to 2030. Yes, but that is a process that will take at least 15 months. So what do we do in the meantime? Do we pay taxes or not? All major investments in biogas is halted for the moment, biomethane, until this situation is clear. But you might heard that there are still some significantly big plants in biomethane building in Sweden. So why is this happening at the same time? How could it be possible? Well, Sweden imports half of its biomethane from Denmark. Now, of course, due to this problem, we need more capacity, we need more biomethane production in Sweden. So these companies, they are international companies investing in Sweden because they have found great feedstock areas. So they produce LNG, bio-LNG, and they sell them to the German gas grid, as they have a long-term certificate system, which is much more profitable to do it that way. So bio-LNG in any form, small scale or big scale, is the future. So finally, some points if you are discussing support schemes for biomethane in your countries. Make sure there are long-term solution and targets. Make sure, point out one, or at least as few departments as possible in charge of the support schemes. Make all the support schemes match in time. That's also very important. So not one is ending 2024, the other one 27, and one goes to 2030. That's not sustainable. And set up support for producers, traders, and end users. Do not only focus in production. Only focus on the whole chain, so we can provide support that enables biomethane to really grow on these markets. And of course, there should be number 5 also, and that is get together as a business. Investors, producers, distributors, traders. Make sure you're a biomethane business when you talk long-term support schemes with your authorities. So that's what I had. A couple of minutes late, but thank you very much.
Are there any questions for Tommy, please? Anyone?
Yes, there's a question.
Hello. The question from me would be as follows. Is there really an issue that the business model for the biogas, especially for LPG, doesn't work without the subsidy? Because in terms of energy content and the price levels in general, especially when we have the gas prices now, it should be feasible.
Any state aid needs a control so you're not overcompensating. The state aid regulation is for closing the gap between new technologies, sustainable technologies, and fossil fuels. So there is a control made every year.
Yeah, but my question was about if isn't that gap already closed? I mean, shouldn't be the business model working without the subsidy?
In theory, yes. It could depend a bit of each country's situation and conditions, of course. In some areas, I would say yes. It is a one-to-one ratio for the moment. So there are no need for support systems. But it all depends on the country and the conditions.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any more?
I will have bots for the panel session.
Fine. Thank you again, Tommy. Thank you.